Paul Delaroche was a French painter who specialized in historical scenes, and by most standards, he had an enormously successful career. Born at the very end of the 18th century, he first made his name with a series of historical scenes which enjoyed great acclaim at the Paris Salon, particularly in the early 1830s. One of Paul Delaroche's most famous paintings hangs in the National Gallery in London and shows the execution of Lady Jane Grey from 1833. This painting was enthusiastically received when exhibited at the Salon in 1834. 3 years later, however, hostile criticism of the works he submitted discouraged Delaroche from exhibiting again at the Salon. The execution of Lady Jane Grey shows Lady Jane Grey, who reigned as Queen of England for only 9 days, following the death of Edward VI in 1553. She was deposed by the faction supporting Edward's half-sister and heir, Mary Tudor. Tried for treason, the 17-year-old Lady Jane was beheaded at Tower Green on the 12th of February, 1554. Delaroche shows the final moments of the blindfolded Lady Jane as she pleads, "What shall I do? Where is the block?" She is being guided towards it by Sir John Bridges, lieutenant of the Tower. Her outer clothing has already been removed and is gathered in the lap of a lady-in-waiting, who has slumped to the ground. Behind her, a second lady-in-waiting stands facing the wall, unable to watch. To the right, the executioner stands waiting. Using a shallow stage-like space, theatrical lighting, and life-size figures, Delaroche plays up the spectacle of the innocent young victim on the brink of martyrdom, compelling us to react to the scene before us. Delaroche continued to specialize in large historical tableaus, often of a tragic nature and characterized by close attention to fine detail. A further example is Edward V and the Duke of York in the Tower from 1831. The subject is probably taken from Shakespeare's Richard III. Edward V succeeded to the throne on the death of his father, Edward IV. He was deposed by his uncle, the Duke of Gloucester, who became Richard III, on the 22nd of June, 1483. Shortly afterwards, he and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, were murdered in the Tower of London. This painting, with its stage-like setting and melodramatic subject, is highly theatrical. The dog and perhaps the young Duke of York sense the arrival of the approaching murderers. An ominous shadow can be seen at the bottom of the door to the bedchamber. Delaroche also painted portraits, including 2 of Napoleon Bonaparte, which were a response to the famous images by David. David had, for example, painted Napoleon crossing the Alps in the style of the propagandic falsehoods. In this painting, we see Napoleon calm on a fiery steed. In Delaroche's response, we do not see a dynamic man of action, but rather a contemplative figure, possibly brooding on the consequences of his actions. A technique that Delaroche developed was using light as an expressive medium as part of his paintings. In his later religious paintings, this technique comes to the forefront of his work. One example of this now hangs in the Louvre, and it's called Young Christian Martyr. Delaroche was interested in the new medium of photography, and towards the end of his career reduced his tonal range in his paintings in order for the contemporary photography to be able to replicate his works.